What's the one piece of career advice you wish someone had given you when you were starting out, Yogesh?
That's a really good question, because when I started out in the technology industry, it was kind of like the mid-90s, and I started out because they were paying a hell of a lot of money for contractors.
Yeah.
And
Good a reason as any.
great reason, right? When I was 25, earning a lot of money, and all the guys around like buying nice cars and stuff. And the thing I wish someone had told me back then was that just keep learning, because I started off and I was a certified netware engineer, which CNE. It was really easy to get a role if you have that. And I worked hard to get it. I had to take like 7 exams, and it wasn't easy. But once I kind of achieved it, it was like, okay, I've got it now. I'm going to make money. That's it. And if I had a bit of foresight, I would have and I did kind of continue learning, but I think I would have been a little bit more accelerated in what I wanted to learn. And another piece of advice I'd give somebody now is look at the whole picture. Don't try and get siloed into one particular area, because if it's tech, there's so many different facets to tech. And I guess it's any industry. If I was giving somebody advice, if they were working in any industry, if you say, for example, you're going to become a chef at a hotel, don't just think about your cooking and your chef. Think about the whole hospitality industry as a whole, and where do you fit in on there? Where do you want to go? Where do you see yourself in 10 years time, or even shorter, like 5 years time, 10 years time, 15 years time? So I would have probably liked to have had a bit more foresight.
Can you share a pivotal moment in your career journey that made a significant impact?
Yeah, so I mean, I kind of progressed from being sort of an engineer into going into project management, into working closer with business stakeholders to understand what they were doing. And then I made a pretty bold move, and it was a real big change in my career as a whole. I started off a new company. I started a tech company actually in my early days, and then we sold out, and I did pretty well out of that. But then slightly down the route, I set up a sports agency.
Wow.
And the reason for that was my brother-in-law actually was a professional poker player, and he won a major tournament. He won a Ladbrokes tournament. Wow. I think it was about $1.6 million he won on that tournament, long time ago. And I was at an event. It was a football event. I was talking to one of the guys from the PFA. I said, why are there any Indian footballers in the Premier League?
Yeah.
And we started talking about the whole community of people involved in that sport, which was coaches, agents, players. And he said, look, actually, I don't see many Indian people in the whole scheme of things, other than I think there's a couple of clubs owned by some Indian people. So he said, why don't you become an agent? If you're so we really got to know each other. And so I said, okay, what do you do? Anyway, cut a long story short, I was the first Indian FIFA licensed agent.
Wow.
And I went to watch the Indian national team. I picked up the best player, and I took him to the MLS. I took him to Portuguese league, and we got him a contract at QPR, and unfortunately he didn't get a work permit. But the whole process was a good 8 to 10 years, and I was still dabbling in tech because I had to pay the bills. Kids were at private schools.
Big bills as well then.
Yeah, but along the journey of football, I got to know everybody in the industry, and I'm still quite well connected in that industry in terms of coaches, players, and owners of football clubs as well. But kind of made me very entrepreneurial. But tech has been something I've loved since the age of 11, 12 when I was at ZX Spectrum. So I was always a magnet to come back into technology, and I ended up working with tech and sports at one stage.
Brilliant. And do you think that from going through that process of setting up 2 businesses in theory, that you've been able to apply some of the skills that you gained, and I suppose some of the resilience obviously within that into your later career in IT as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think in any career, whatever segment you're on, one thing I learned to me, I was working predominantly in technology within investment banks.
Yeah.
And you get the same type of people within the tech area of a bank. I'm not talking about the business areas, just the tech areas. And when I broke away from that, I got to meet a whole different type of person. I met people in India, met people globally, footballers, managers, coaches, executives, lawyers. And I think what I learned was, whatever you do, it's all about people, and it's that emotional intelligence you got to have. Especially when I started doing stuff, entrepreneurial type activities. Your success is the knowledge you have, the work ethic you have, but for me, the most important is your soft skills, how you can interact with different types of people. And then I teach you that, you got to just go out and learn from trial and error.
Yeah, definitely. So it touches on what we spoke about prior to the questions, getting comfortable in uncomfortable areas, doesn't it? It's, if that doesn't come naturally to you, ultimately in time, the more you do of it and push yourself, the more comfortable you will become in those sort of situations and scenarios, and that can really pave the way for, especially for leadership and growth throughout your later career.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I can add, and you might ask me this question, I don't know what your other questions are, but I'll just jump into something. If we're talking about getting into positions of good leadership, first of all, you've got to understand people when you're a leader. And personally, I found that where you have real self-development is by some of your more personal habits as a human being, are you getting up and going to sleep consistently at a certain time? What are your food habits like? Are you exercising regularly? Are you reading? It doesn't have to be just development books, but are you generally reading to sort of expand your horizon of thought, whatever that might be? Self-development's always good, but you could learn about the Russian Revolution. You can learn anything, right? It's going to help you. And if you're putting the time to look after yourself, then you're going to be in a much better position to advise and help people, because you're talking from real experience. And I think people can feel that when you're talking to them and you're genuine about it. I think humans, we have this energy level where we can actually feel that, this is the truth. This is genuine. And when you do give advice to people, or you're a leader, it comes across, it rubs off.
Definitely.
I think it makes a big difference.
How do you approach challenges and setbacks in your professional life, and what's your go-to strategy for overcoming them?
Challenges. I like challenges. I mean, I challenge myself on a physical level. And if I'm going to challenge myself on a physical level, you start off with small challenges, and I think if you keep challenging yourself every day, like if you wake up and have a cold shower for 2 minutes every morning, it's never going to be comfortable having that cold shower. You're having a cold shower first thing in the morning, so you're having a challenge from the first moment you wake up. So if you are going to have challenges, you've got to, your resilience gets better and better. In terms of setbacks, I think it's hard to answer that question, because some people have had much bigger setbacks than I have. There's people in the world, like I said to you earlier on, who don't even have drinking water. That's a setback. You don't have food for your family. That's a setback. We live in a world where a lot of the setbacks we have are probably first world setbacks or issues. But I think with things like that, if you could get an understanding that, look, all of life is temporary, we're temporary, there's a bigger scheme, there's a bigger picture, and you've got to just be resilient and keep going.
Yeah.
then that it's a mindset thing more than anything else.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think we could talk for a long time about this. Yeah. But there's a lot of spirituality. There's how much faith you have. Do you have and I'm not saying you have to be religious or you have to have a faith, but if you're just a strong person, like physically, mentally, and you've got good habits, it goes a long way.